In today's video, we're plunging into the heart of a story about a woman who shattered every boundary she swore she'd never cross in one unforgettable, life-altering night. This isn't just a tale of seduction. It's about tension, truth, and the moment desire collides with hesitation. It's about choosing vulnerability over safety, standing behind every sense, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Disclaimer: this content is for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. I never imagined I'd be here unraveling like this. If you'd asked me the day before, I'd have scoffed at the notion that he could cross a line I'd vowed to stay miles away from. But sometimes all it takes is one fleeting moment, a glance, a breath, a heartbeat to dismantle throttles you've built your life around. That night, something inside me released, not in a storm of chaos, but with a quiet clarity, like a knot. After years of being pulled tight, I wasn't scared, not anymore. The only thing I felt was ready. The loft was silent, almost unnaturally so. The only sound was the soft hum of necessity through the large windows, casting glassy shadows across the polished concrete floor, as if it sensed something inevitable was coming, something irreversible. Earlier that evening, he looked at me, not with words, not even a smile, but with eyes that lingered too long, heavy with unspoken truths. I could see it, the words he wanted to say trapped at the edge of his lips. His mouth twitched with hesitation. Fear, perhaps, or pride, or maybe the weight of knowing that once gave this thing between us air, it would never be contained again. This wasn't sudden. This tension had been simmering for months, maybe years. We'd always danced on the edge of something more. Hands brushing to long when passing a wineglass, glances that carried too much weight from your friendship, laughter that lingered too deeply, sitting just a little too closely in the studio couch. Every moment was a whisper of something something we never dared name. Until that night, I stepped out of mid. No words, no hesitation, no scanned thoughts, just bare skin, bare soul. The hallway was dim, lit only by a single lamp, shadows clinging to thralls like silent witnesses. He stood at the far end, frozen. When his eyes met mine, I saw the rules we'd lived by default. He didn't move at first, didn't speak. His gaze traced over me, then locked back on my eyes, not with raw lust, but with a stunned, almost reverent awe, like I was both everything craved and everything he feared. He stepped forward, slow and deliberate, until the cool wall pressed against my back, and the heat between us began to ignite. Still, he didn't touch him, not yet. His hands hovered, inches away, held back by invisible threads of caution, consequence, history. I could almost hear the battle raging in his touch her, or walk away, say it, or keep pretending. But some lines once crossed demand you burn the map of who you thought you were. I'd already leaped off the edge. There was no going back. He leaned closer, his breath warm and unsteady, mingling with mine, close enough to kiss, but holding that impossible sliver of space between us. And then, just when I thought I knew what was coming, he whispered something I wasn't prepared for. Something that shattered the silence more than any touch could. But I'll pause there. What do you think he said? Would you have made the same choice I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments on vote in the poll. Should she push forward or step back before it's too late? Because trust me, what happens next changes everything. My name is Maya, and I'm 38, living in a quiet arts district in a city like Portland called the Pearl. I moved here 5 years ago, seeking solace after a messy divorce left me raw. I rent a small loft with a large industrial window surrounded by the scent of rain and coffee from the roastery below. My life is simple. Work as a freelance graphic designer. Walks along the waterfront. The occasional gallery, opening with people I like but don't love. And then there's Leo. Leo is 32, a musician, and Luthier has a workshop across the hall. We met when he helped me assemble a large bookcase 3 years ago. His hands steady and calloused, his smile easy but guarded. Since then, we've built a quiet connection. Late-night chats over whiskey in my loft, shared walks to the late-night diner, texts about nothing and everything. We were never just friends, but we never crossed it into more. Always, almost lovers, almost honest, always holding back. That night, though I stopped at holding my breath, the silence between us wasn't empty. It was heavy with the very thing we'd left unsaid. All the near confessions, the buried feelings, the restrained desires. Leo looked at me, his face a storm of emotions, longing, guilt, want, and beneath it all, fear. His hand lifted halfway to my face, fingers trembling. He thought this was it, the touch that would break the spell. But he stopped, his hand falling, the air growing denser. I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't just afraid of what came next. He was afraid of why he wanted it so badly. Off hut, it might cost us both. Was he scared of me or of himself? What do you think? Would you stay silent or demand answers? Share in the comments. The wall was cold against my skin, but his presence was fire warming the air between us. Still no touch, still no words. Then, just as the tension felt unbearable, his phone buzzed, a single sharp vibration that sliced through the moment. He didn't move at first, but high sighs betrayed him. He was choosing me, or whatever was on that screen. He reached into his pocket, glanced at the phone, and everything shifted. His body stiffened, his jaw tightened, the warmth in his eyes flickering into something colder, more distant. He looked back at me, not with desire, but with a heavy burden. I didn't want you to find out like this, he said, his voice low, almost. Find out what? The question clawed at my throat. This wasn't about lust or bad timing anymore. This was about secrets. Real ones, thickened that fester in the dark until they are dragged into the light. My heart pounded, not with thrill, but with dread. He stared at me like he wanted to reach out but couldn't, not because he didn't want to, but because touching me numbed, confessing everything. And then Hugh whispered that call. It was her, she spec'd her, the woman who'd shattered him years ago. He never spoke of her in full sentences, only fragments, as if her name alone could summon her power over him again. She was back, and suddenly, he wasn't the only one exposed in that. Leo was laid bare too, by a past he hadn't released. I steadied my voice stronger than I felt. So what now? Do you run back to what broke you or stay and face what this is? He didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched, thick with possibility and pain. Then he stepped forward, his hand finding my face, steady, certain, real. I don't want the past, he said. I want you. It should have felt like a fairy tale. It didn't because, just as I thought we were stepping into something real. His buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, and his face drained of color. It's her, he said. She's here downstairs. I braced myself for the inevitable, for him to run, to chase the ghost of his path, to leave me standing there exposed in every way. But instead he did something I didn't expect. He turned off his phone, set it on the table, and looked at me. No fear this time. I don't owe the past anything, he said. But I owe you the truth. He stepped closer, his forehead gently resting against mine. No rush, no fireworks, just breath, presence, truth. And in that moment I realized this wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning of something raw, something real. But the truth wasn't simple. Over the next few days, Leo opened up about her, Chloe, his ex-fiancée, who'd left him 4 years ago without a word, chasing a life she thought she wanted more. She'd returned to the city, claiming she'd changed, wanting to reconnect. Leo admitted he'd been ignoring her calls for weeks, unsure how to face her, unsure if he could trust himself not to fall back into old patterns. But that night with me, he'd made a choice, not just to stay, but to let go. We didn't leap into a romance. It wasn't that kind of story. Instead, we started building something slower, more deliberate. We spent evenings on my couch talking about fears, dreams, the weight of our pasts. I told him about my divorce, how it left me questioning if I could ever be enough for someone again. He shared how Chloe's leaving had made him doubt his worth. We weren't fixing each other, just listening, seeing each other in ways we hadn't before. One night, as we sat under the glow of the city lights, a bottle of wine between us, Leo reached it from my hand. Not a grand gesture, just a quiet one, his fingers threading through mine. I'm not promising perfection, he said, but I'm here, and I'm choosing this is. I squeezed his hand, my heart steady for the first time in years. That's enough, I said. This wasn't a movie ending. No sweeping music or dramatic confessions. It was two people, choosing honesty over fear, presence over ghosts. And maybe that's what love is, not lightning bolts, but small terrifying choices like turning off a phone when the past comes calling, or stepping forward when every instinct screams to run. What do you think? Would you trust Leo after everything? Would you take the risk knowing the past was still out there knocking? And what happens next? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think they'll make it, or will Chloe's return unravel them? Sometimes the most seductive thing isn't what happens behind closed doors, It's what happens when you open them to a man who finally sees you.